Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Gonzalo Duran, and Gonzalo is running for the New York Public Advocate. So, what's the name of the party that you're running on?
So I'm running under I'm a registered conservative and I'm running
Mhm.
under the Republican line, the conservative line, and my own banner independent line, which is the United Alliance Party.
Okay, so ha- that's great. You have three lines. Um, Now your district takes up the entire city, the entire five boroughs?
Yeah, so this is my position that I'm running for. It's a citywide position. So I cover all the boroughs. And it's been a pretty good experience going around the different boroughs and working with the different community leaders and candidates and seeing the different aspects that I didn't see before.
Now you started your own party, correct?
Yes, I this particular year I started the United Alliance Party. It's a nonpartisan independent line.
Mm.
We have no particular party or objectives. My goal is for individuals to be able to run for office without any constraints on them. So in this part, and what I played was as an administrator. So one of the biggest problems people have is they don't know the paperwork to submit or how to do it. So I helped administratively, and then with my network ability, I helped assist them with the canvassing part as well.
You know, it's really unfortunate that a lot of people who want to run for office don't know the nuts and bolts. So if they try, they're kind of flailing at it. So what do you say about that?
Well, I mean, there's rule books and for people to get the knowledge that they need. So there's the book smart. That's easy. You can open a book. That's I tell everybody all the time. Open a book. It's not that hard. You have to read. You have to learn. You have to if you're going to be in a position of a politician, you need to do that. But there's also street smarts. You have to be able to, it's we're not playing kid games. This is politics. This is money,
Right.
legislation being built. So there's competition, there's backstabbing, there's, a lot of issues going on that you have to deal with. And to maneuver through that, you have to get your hands dirty. I would say to somebody that's interested is always to start from the bottom and work your way up. There's county level positions where it's not so not too much competition in. It's volunteer. So it's something to get your feet wet and then move up the chain in your own time. And I hate to plug myself in, but if you guys are interested, the United Alliance Party will be recruiting for next year's election. So you
Mm.
guys feel free to reach out to me for that as well.
You know, people who want to serve, they don't understand the down ballot races. They go right for like Congress or Senate, and they don't know who the people they should contact and stuff. So it's really I think it's sad.
Yes, it is. And I think it's not by chance the way it is, it's by design. And I can't speak about the national level, but I can talk about New York, specifically New York City. The Democrats have been in charge for decades and they've made this, and I've used this pun before. It's not my favorite, but it's a legitimate, words that I'm using right now. They've created their own gang where if you're not in there within their inner circle, it's easy for them to kick you out and push you out. I was a Democrat for a majority of my life, from 18 to only 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, where I split across. I've always considered myself a moderate. I don't particularly go to the far left or the far right, and I'm in the middle. And the I would say the Democrats have gone, in New York City too far to the left for me. And, being a moderate, trying to push more to the right has had me a lot of conflictions when it came to the Democratic Party not letting me get on the ballot. They had done everything they could to push me off over the years. And, I decided 3 years ago that I wanted to be more integrated into it. So I reached out to the other parties, and the Conservative Party was the one willing to work with me the most. They let my voice be heard. And since then, I flourished. I mean, in 2 years, I've made the Bronx Conservative Party the beacon of conservatism across the city. I've increased our numbers, our candidates prospects. Look at me now. I'm literally two cycles ago, I was a nobody, and now I'm running for the second highest level position in New York City. So, what I'm saying is this is good advice for anybody listening or who's interested. It's possible, but you gotta do the work.
So, what ways did the Democratic Party try to push you out of the scene?
Well, so if let's say if you're not going within if you're competing with them. So let's say I have I work in enough my work, my 9 to 5 is nonprofit work. And over the years I've done a tremendous amount of work. I've received coverage from since I started my work in 2000, roughly 2013. And my advocacy has I've been able to push law, help assist laws to get into place. I've been a community leader working with individuals, but at a certain point, they don't want you to get too much face recognition if they see that you can be competition. So they're okay with you if you're helping them get their faces on flyers, getting them into speaking engagements. But once you want to put yourself in a position of politics as well, then they'll start, you won't see funding come your way. You won't see them giving you awards. You don't see them, all of a sudden the limelight of media is no longer there. So, those are things that hinder somebody who wants to be, let's say, an activist or somebody from just a regular civilian trying to be into politics.
So, it's one big clique, is what you're saying.
Yes, yes, and if you're not in that clique, so for the normal person wanting to get into politics that's not within their circle, they you have to maybe work 10, 20 years as a puppet, and I don't mean to be so negative when I say that, but they want to make sure that the person that takes over is, within they have some kind of control on, some kind of, because they don't want to lose the momentum. Like, let's say for city council, it's only for 12 years, three cycles. Um, and so you're gonna want to keep that seat for them, and you're gonna put somebody that that you've worked closely with, and have that that can that I don't want, for a better lack of a better word, relationship. So you can keep the status quo evenly, you don't want anything to hinder that progress. And that's a prime example right there.
Would you say this is all over the country, that mindset?
So, at the national level, it's a little different because let's say in different places, the Republicans outweigh the Democrats, and then there's in some other places, the swing states are in the middle. But, I can speak more about New York and New York City.
Okay.
For me specifically, I know I have an uphill battle in New York City. But I've been working my way up so that I can get to the state level because I believe truly I have a better opportunity at the state because the state of New York is, it's a majority red outside of the city. So for me, I started at city council, running for city council in 2023. 2024, I ran for Congress, which gave me the Republican and conservative line. This year, I'm sorry, for 2023, when I ran for city council, I ran only as a conservative. So I got my feet wet. And then for 2024 as Congress with the Republican conservative line.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year, I'm running for a citywide for public advocate with Republican conservatives and an independent line. I'm hoping that next year, I've built a reputation, my background. I'm a former Marine, Iraq veteran, nonprofit leader, and political leader as well now. that, I have a way to, it's been a stepping stone for me to maybe become or run for lieutenant governor. That would be my next objective.
Wow. So, the governor's race next year is going to be very interesting.
Yes, and what's going on now will reflect on what happens next year. So, like, for example, if Mandani wins, or and that socialist group, so now you're going to have a mayor who's a socialist, a public advocate who's a socialist. Then you have AOC on the wins right there, the head spokesman for the Socialist Party, um, the Democratic Socialist Party, excuse me. Um, and I think it will be some push for Republicans to have some some firepower, but that's not the position I would want us to be in. I don't want us to be in a negative, trying to work uphill battle, trying to, gather the Republicans across the state to try to make an effort. No, that should be going on now so that we have a full hold for next year. But once again, it has not been an easy journey. Um, with no media coverage, almost no media coverage at all, and no cooperation with, um, let's say, um, party lines. Um, and it's been pretty evident in the news for that as well.
Okay, let's talk about this. As far as media coverage is concerned, people have the opportunity to create their own media now through the internet. But for the mainstream media, what what is their reaction to your candidacy?
So I can tell you that I have repeatedly throughout the year reached out to the local, mainstream media and the national media, and it's not been well. We have not been well receptive. I don't think any any of the Bronx one have done any profile pieces on me. That's one. I've been fortunate that there are individuals, reporters that have done work for, or excuse me, have done spots on events that are politically centric. So like I've done protests for power plants, socialism, and some other things which have been covered, but not me specifically as a citywide candidate, like a featured piece.
Mm.
I've been lucky that my activist work for my personal, like my nonprofit work, has also been picked up quite a bit. So, but when I do politics, then it changes over. Let's say for like, one of the newscasts did a segment on the power plant, like video. So a mainstream video, um, media company came over and they did a segment on us for my power plant, which I was, I held the event with Curtis Silva and candidates within, the Republican and conservative line in the, I think, the 12th district, city council district. They did the whole segment without mentioning conservatives, Republican politicians, my name, Curtis' name. I think the wording they used were Eastchester residents protesting or something like that. So
Oh,
they completely overlooked that. And then, but I've had good luck when it has come to international. So I've petitioned, or yeah, I guess I petitioned so that I can get more international visibility. So let's say Italy, it was LA7, which is one of the big networks in over there. They were looking for individuals to interview on Trump's policies within New York City. So it's easier for me to get an interview from an international outlet than it is from my local outlet. So I've gone Italy, China, and South America this year on my work on politics. Um, more and but I haven't been able to get featured in my local community. I got very lucky with a citywide, Spectrum New York One did do um interviews with the candidates, And this is
Hmm.
this is really important. You're gonna love this. So New York one had the courage to go forward and do the debates without the CFB regulations, the Campaign Finance Board. If you're a candidate in New York City and you're using public money, if you make a certain amount of money or you make the threshold, then you're obligated to have a debate, period. But if you don't make the threshold, they're not obligated to invite you. So I didn't make the threshold, but Jamani Williams did, and he got like over $2 million worth of public funds, right? So now he declined like the day before to do the debate, even though New York one was going forward with it. Luckily, there was independent candidate, different independent candidate that was running for public advocate. So they did a interview with us. The day before the Gothamist, they published an article saying the day's ruined, something like that. I don't remember the exact title. The day's ruined. Public advocate debate is canceled, something like that. And the reporter happened to mention that none of the candidates, like myself and the other independent candidate, was available for comment. The truth is, they never reached out to us, and I did some research, and I saw this reporter just happens to be one of her highlights as an award-winning journalist is she did one of some of the few breaking coverages on AOC. So
Hmm.
if you look at it, now you have a reporter that's more leaning towards socialism or Democrats, and she's willing to bypass any journalistic integrity by not contacting the other candidates about their thoughts on the debate being canceled, you know? So stuff like that, I had to call her out, and the Gothamist for something like that, for them to actually put in our comments, you know. So that's another example of how the media has controlled, um, us getting our voice. For me, in the Bronx, let's say we have 4 or 5 medias, um, or big media, and four of them let's just go with 5. Let's say 4 of them are nonprofits. So where do they get their money funding from? From politicians. So it's intuitive for them not to highlight us, but highlight the Democratic officials. And then the one media that's not controlled by the the that's not a nonprofit, it's for profit, just happens to be something that was started by one of the Democratic officials. So once again, we're hindering ourselves. We have no leverage. But I understand media is a business. You hit the point perfectly in the beginning. Now that you can get media, it's not hard. So myself and the candidates across the city have depended on independent media like yourself and others, to get some visibility and our voices heard. Um, and we've been more active, or I suggest people to be more active on social media so they can get their faces and words across. But the mainstream media is where we're talking about tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands instead of a couple hundreds or thousands. We need that larger visibility, and the more that they hinder us, the worse that it's getting.
But in go doing the focus on the candidates, I realize that a lot of the candidates don't know the ins of out of social media, and it's difficult for them to navigate. And if the mainstream media is not going to cover them, they're still lost, right?
Yes, and one reason why the mainstream media doesn't cover us is because we can't pay out the money. Like, let's say a for profit, and I'm just throwing these numbers out. These are not 100%
Okay.
accurate, but let's say a newspaper, to run, ads or press releases for candidate could be anywhere between $15,000 or more. That's at the low end scale, you know. So
Mm.
if a candidate isn't making matching funds or coming in with big donors, then it's almost impossible to, you know, to work with that amount. That's a large amount, you know. When it comes to the independent and social media, my biggest fear is that we will be so dependent on social media that, let's say, an influencer will have a better shot at becoming a politician instead of somebody who's actually qualified to be a politician. That scares me. That scares me a lot.
So, do you think that would you classify it as an influencer? Do you see them trying to become politicians?
Well, we've seen progression little by little, but you know, it's you know, if you become to the level of an influencer, it's I would say visibility and financial viability makes more sense to become an influencer and not become a politician, because then you have restrictions and controls and stuff that you have to go. So, but I see it being more easy for it to happen. Like I can't remember the influencer's name, but somebody came to the Bronx, you know, a couple of months ago, and I guess they wanted to maybe highlight that they were giving Xboxes or something like that. In that situation, you had hundreds to maybe a few, you know, thousand individuals pile up in an area in a community. I can tell you right now, there are dozens and dozens of politicians and candidates that try to get people to get in a room, and it's hard to get 20 or 30 people in a room, you know. But if they can bring hundreds to 1,000 or more into a room by just saying we're gonna give Xboxes or something, you know, trivial, something like that, it scares me. It scares me, you know, at that level. Because once again, are they coming because of the trend, or are they coming for the policies or the transitions or the advocacy part? No, they're not. You know, that's not the way I see it. But you know, people, us candidates, we need to have solid, independent, and also personal media. But without the major media, we're gonna be stuck. We're gonna be stuck, continuously be stuck.
So, let's talk a little bit about the races. Let's talk a little bit about the mayor's race. How is Curtis doing?
He is doing great. You know, as a former United States Marine, you know, I've been through some hard times, and this guy has been standing next to me, shoulder to shoulder, and I seen him do it, and I'm amazed. I'm amazed. You know, we did a parade. We did a 4 hour or more parade, and he was coming from something else. So he did something in the morning. Midday, we went to a 4 hour parade that we walked across, and then he went to continue doing other events and other things that one day that we hung out. And I was tired. I went home and I knocked out. So energy wise, he's there. He's opened multiple campaign headquarters across the city. I know he has one in all the city, all the counties, all the boroughs, excuse me. And he has some. He has multiple in different boroughs. You know, I've been pushing for as many uh, get out the vote campaigns as I can in the Bronx. I spent weeks beforehand trying to rally up, you know, the troops to push out the GOTVs across the boroughs. And you know, when I walk to the community, it's great to see his signs out, people wearing his shirts, people giving me high fives, you know, saying they're going to vote for him. So I've gotten great and positive feedback regarding Curtis.
Good. So, the days leading up to the primary in June, uh, Mandami was like he was forging ahead, and it seems as though, from my observation, Cuomo did not wage a good campaign for mayor back then because he thought he was a shoo-in. Would you agree?
Yes, and I can tell you that for sure because I am very active within the city, because especially this year. and I didn't see him do a big of a push. But to be honest, I mean, we're talking about three different type of peoples completely. You know, we're talking about Zohan, who has not too much work experience and who is a legislator right now, but hasn't had a full career yet. You know, but he's the front runner. And I will say, and I will give credits to the Democratic Party, is that when they have somebody that they want, they come together and they pull together for their candidate. 100%. That's, you know, I once again, that's Democrats, and that's working in their favor, the way they operate. When you look at somebody like Cuomo, who assumed that he would just automatically, but he did get a large amount of money. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars that he received, you know, to run a hard campaign. Where that money went, I don't know. But you know, we're talking about somebody who was a former governor, you know, AG, I believe he was. I know he was on the legal at the high level, but he
Mm.
comes from a dynasty and a family that, you know, that they've been, so he's been, I don't want to say he's been handed because he has done work, but you know, be honest, he's had a leg up his career, you know, so, and he showed that. He showed that, you know, with his campaign. Um, but you know, we're talking about somebody with multiple, you know, harassment charges pending, you know, or have gone through. And I'm sure if he made it to be mayor, there would be a lot more popping out. And you know, getting out as a disgraced governor, resigning under this for what he did during the COVID period. I'm surprised that people are even taking him as a serious candidate. And then the third one is Curtis Silva. Curtis Silva is someone who doesn't have the same reputation as those guys. We're talking about somebody who's been a fighter for the community, advocating for decades. You know, he has his own issues, but nothing to the severity of what these guys have on negativity. And someone who's, you know, I see myself. I was actually running against him in the beginning of the election cycle, and now I'm his biggest supporter. Not because I'm his running mate, but because I've seen people when they first met him recently, tears from their eyes, being so happy they finally got to meet, you know, somebody, their hero, you know, somebody who they respect and admire over years. I've seen this guy work, Curtis work for the candidates running before the primaries. So he helped many candidates run for be able to get on the ballot this year. And now my goal has been to try to push those candidates to help him out. And I don't have to work that hard because they all love him across the board.
Wow. So seems like it's Mandami, Cuomo, and Sliwa.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Well, I mean, those are the front runners. Those are with the, you know, percentage of the polls. I mean, there's other candidates. Jim Walden left. I don't think, you know, with Jim Walden, you know, I don't, you know, I'm not here to comment on people's campaigns, but you know, for me, I think him going by himself was a terrible idea. I think he should have had a slate. Maybe he would have had a better opportunities. And he does have a good background, and he did have good funding. You know, one of my under my party line is Irina Estrada, who's running as well. You know, I've offered my hand to her to help her where I can. Um, and you know, I think there might be one other one. I think one of the guys from Hernandez, I think he's from the bodega, maybe part of in the bodega um federation, or they've supported him. I don't know too much about him, but you know, I don't know if he's still actively campaigning. I think he might be, but you know, the polls haven't put him anywhere near the other three.
So tell us a little bit about your race. You're running for public advocate, and you're running against an incumbent. Um, is Jamani Williams popular in New York City?
Well, is he popular in New York City? I would say that, like many elected officials in New York City, he is not well known. He is not well liked. But is he popular? He has a large number of um, Democratic constituents, which always going to put him above me in the number wise. So come across, once again, I work with many across party lines. Um, And I say this without maliciousness or negativity. Um, Once again, a lot of people don't know who he is. A lot of people don't favor what he stands for that I've come across. And I've been endorsed by Democrats, I've been endorsed by Republicans, conservatives, independents, and I'm working on other endorsements. So when I say this with somebody who does his best to work across party lines. You know, I'm not just coming as a Republican conservative mad at Democrats and because he's incumbent being negative towards it. These are things I've seen visibly, and that's why I'm running because I think I could do a better job across advocating for individuals across party lines. I'm not worried about subgroups or races or party lines. I'm focused on trying to save New York.
What qualities would you bring to the table if you were elected that Williams does not have?
I would say my ability to um, start and build up organizations. That's one, and my leadership ability. So, once again, I'm a former United States Marine Sergeant, Iraq veteran. I was an administrator. So, from in that capacity, I had been working with building units from the bottom all the way to making them into battalions. Administratively, I have worked with individuals, legal administration, pay, housing, all the things that let's say a city services provide for uh, the communities.
Mhm.
As a nonprofit leader for over 13 years, I have worked with all the once again all the issues that New York City has to offer. I have advocated for them, fight for them, and pushed building that without like for my organization we have operated 13 years without any federal, state, or city funding. We've done it simply through donations and sponsorship. So that shows that I can keep activities and growth without having to basically beg for the money part. And then when
Mhm.
it comes to the politics wise, like I said, I hold the vice chairman for the Bronx County Conservative Party leadership position. I have, you know, I've been named by the Bronx Journal as the new face of Bronx conservatism, but at the same time, you know, I have my running my counterpart Marty Dolan, who is a Democrat. We did a cross endorsement, so he endorsed me for public advocate, and I also have other Democrats that have um, endorsed me as well because of the work that I've done, being able to be bipartisan, which this position requires most of all for a bipartisan position, which I don't see Jamani at. You know, I don't see him at Republicans or conservative events helping us out or listening to our voices. More always the negativity part, always the opposition instead of the person who's trying to bring unity.
So, you wear two hats. You wear the hat of a party official plus a candidate. What do you think of? Do you think politics is theater?
Yes, and the way I look at it, it's pretty sad. You know, I look at the C-SPAN and I see how at the higher level and the chambers, how these individuals conduct themselves, and it's embarrassing that I have to say, wow, these are the people that are in charge of our policies, the money, the economy, and then I have to go back to our communities and I have to rally the candidates and I have to rally the constituents and say, yes, these are the things that we're doing. Like it's pretty embarrassing. And it's hard because every step that I try to take forward, it's always like them pushing us back two steps. Um,
Wow.
so it's hard. It's a hard situation.
So anybody that's listening and watching this video, if they want to donate to you or volunteer in the closing weeks, how could they do so?
Well, they can reach out and they can check out all my information at Gonzalo Duran NYC. That's www GonzaloDuran.NYC. And they can check out my social media at is at Gonzalo Duran NYC. I suggest people check out my social media to see. I post very publicly and often so that people can get a idea of the person that I am, and then they can check out my website to see my policies, my more in-depth information about things that I'm working on. And then there's also the ways that they can reach out to donate or to volunteer on the work that I'm doing. And I'm not gonna. This is not me just one time. This is me as building for a future as well. So if you can't help this cycle, trust me, I'm gonna be working the next one as well.
Okay, terrific. So, Gonzalo, thank you so much for being on Focus on the Candidates. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Most important, everybody that's listening, on August 1st, which is Saturday, I'm designating National Candidate Recognition Day. Um, we're celebrating our 250th birthday on the 4th of July. So a couple of weeks later, please recognize all the candidates who've worked so hard, sacrificing their time, money, energy to make sure that we've had 250 birthdays. And if you want to help me create this, please email me at localeverywhere@aol.com. Gonzalo, it's been great talking to you. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you.